What's a let that sink in fun fact? The United States hasn't minted any new Purple Heart medals since World War II. We've been using the stockpile that was prepared in anticipation of a ground invasion of Japan. We can't prove we aren't in a simulation. Schizophrenia's hallucinations are shaped by culture. Americans with schizophrenia tend to have more paranoid and harsher voices hallucinations. All 6 of the stars of Friends negotiated 2% syndication rights for the show. Friends still makes about $1 billion yearly through reruns, Hulu, etc. All 6 Friends collect a $20 million check annually. Yes. That means David Schwimmer still gets $20 million a year for doing nothing. So when you are alone in your 1BR apt, watching Friends and snickering how any of them are losers who haven't been famous since, there's a reason why. They don't have to work ever again. Since its discovery in 1930, Pluto has not yet made a full orbit of the sun. It went from undiscovered to planet. The sinking of the Titanic was a miracle to the lobsters in the galley. About 40% of the world's food is wasted, and a lot of that is before it even hits the shelves. Cows kill more Americans than terrorists. Next year, there will be P-run stars who were born in 2000. Google's DeepMind self-learning AI AlphaZero spent 4 hours learning chess and proceeded to beat the top chess engine in the world. The particularly interesting part is that it wins by playing in a very human way. Chess engines tend to run algorithms to assess a board after a move is chosen, looking at millions of moves every second, and decide who's better based on a set of parameters, making their play very direct. AlphaZero seemed to develop a far more human playstyle, somehow seeing something less quantifiable that led to an advantage in a position. Over the past 200 years, numerous chess masters studied a style of play similar to AlphaZero. That means that in 4 hours, AlphaZero developed a better understanding of the game than we could over the 1000 plus years it has been studied. Lobsters don't die of old age. Taking into consideration that humanity has only explored a small percentage of the ocean, there could very well be a big FCKing lobster just chilling out there. Edit. Apparently the square cube law prevents super huge lobsters, but there are still some pretty big ones out there that we don't really get to see. I saw one on the internet that was 4 feet long, had 2-foot long legs, and weighed 14 pounds. Still pretty cool. Probably too late for this to be seen. But if you take into account the fact that on average people sleep, or should sleep, 8 hours a day, if when you get 99 years of age, you will have only been awake for 66 years, having spent 33 years of your life sleeping. That's why I always stay up late. As you get closer to black hole, time goes slower. This means that everything farther away would experience time faster and faster as you get closer and closer to the black hole. A second for you could be a billion years for those outside of it. Thus, if you fell into a black hole and looked outside, you would see the universe die with you. There is, on average, a supernova explosion every 50 years in the Milky Way. On average, there are 30 every second in the observable universe. When the Next Generation first aired, data was roughly 60,000x faster than the fastest computer on Earth. Today he is roughly 500x slower than the current fastest computer. Fanta started as a Coca-Cola substitute in 1940s Nazi Germany. Fruit Loops are all the same flavor. Next to the US Army, there are more tigers privately owned in Texas than tigers in the wild. Edit. The moon orbits us from the west to the east, but we see it move across the sky east to west because of the rate of the Earth's rotation. Our observation is like being in a faster car watching a slower car, heading in the same absolute direction, fall further and further behind us. The first electric car was invented at the end of the 19th century and it went 65 miles per hour. There was a time in history when trees existed but the fungi which causes wood to rot had not yet evolved to digest wood. Dead trees and plants would pile up and the 35% oxygen atmosphere caused massive fires. This is also the time where petrified wood came from. Trees would sit in mud for thousands of years and not rot while minerals slowly replace the wood structures. Fires and 35% oxygen. And wood everywhere. I'd be f***ing petrified too. The entire continent of South America is east of Florida. Charlemagne's name translates to Charles the Great. This wasn't due to his leadership. This was due to the fact that he was 6'4" when the average male was 5'6". His name was just Big Charlie. There was a period of time where 4 distinct species of human lived concurrently. But everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Neutron stars have such strong gravity that if you dropped a marshmallow into one, it would be like dropping a 3-megaton nuclear warhead on Earth. It took humanity approximately 4 times longer to switch from copper swords to steel swords than it took to switch from steel swords to nuclear bombs. Bing Crosby advocated for salmon conservation in the North Atlantic against Denmark's overfishing in the early 1970s. The Danish government banned everything Bing Crosby in Denmark. But because he was so popular there, the Danish people protested the government, making them overturn the Bing Crosby law and even to enact salmon conservation legislation. Bing Crosby single-handedly managed to create a piece of Danish law. Edit. Did not expect this to get so big. Here is my evidence for the unconvinced. In 1971 case, the Committee on the Atlantic Salmon Emergency enlisted the help of celebrities to publicize their efforts to convince the Danes to restrain their salmon fleet. One was Bing Crosby, who was part Danish. An enraged Danish government banned the sale of Crosby's records, only to discover that he was incredibly popular in Denmark. The move backfired and produced an outpouring of public support for both the crooner and the salmon. David R. Montgomery. King of Fish. The 1,000-Year Run of Salmon. Cambridge. Westview. 2003. 114. Maine is the closest US state to Africa. I bless the Maines down in Africa. Scientists who work with cockroaches often develop allergies towards cockroaches. At the same time, they also develop allergies to pre-ground coffee. There's about 12 times more trees on Earth than stars in the Milky Way. The Holy Roman Empire existed until 30 years after the United States was founded, 1776-1806. There are more chickens in America than people on the planet. If the sun was scaled down to the size of a white blood cell, the Milky Way galaxy would be the size of the continental United States. The vastness of space is mind-boggling. There was only 65 years between the Wright brothers' first flight and the moon landing. The US dropped 172 bombs last year, 2016. That's almost 72 per day. That's about 3 bombs an hour. Every hour. For the entire year. In 2017. The US had already dropped more bombs than that by September. The US Navy has the 2nd largest air force in the world. To be in the top 1% of Americans in terms of income, you need to rake in about $400. 000 a year. Rounded off to $1. 000 a day. Woohoo. I only have $999 to go today. Deceased men with prostates can have family members request that a rod is inserted in their ass and shock the prostate to cause ejaculation. Why would anyone want that to happen? The only thing I could see this doing is making a funeral less boring. The overall goal in golf. When NASA pitched the idea of the Voyager missions to Richard Nixon with the idea of touring the outer planets, he was told that the last time it was possible, Thomas Jefferson was in the White House. The particular planetary alignment that Voyager 2 used on its journey occurs only once every 176 years. Jefferson really dropped the ball. The overwhelming majority of hands you've touched have had a dick in them at one point. You don't remember being born or most of the first years of your existence. All you know is one day you just started existing and taking in experience memories. Macaulay Culkin is now older than Catherine O'Hara was when she played his mom in Home Alone. Mark Hamill in The Force Awakens is the same age that Alec Guinness was in A New Hope. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Donald Trump were all born within a 66-day stretch. All that stuff you learn about in history class about civilizations rising up and dying out. About certain groups killing off other groups and taking over their lands. That is still happening right now. Dozens of Americans die every day from slipping in the shower and hitting their heads. Dozens. I tell you. It's one of the primary leading causes of non-medical deaths in the USA. If you have clean water and temperature control, you are better off than half the population. An iPhone is more powerful than every computer NASA had combined. In 1969, during the first lunar landing, the majority of the first American settlers only survived the first winter by eating their dead children. There is more than one type of infinity. And they aren't all the same size. From 0 down in negative numbers. Infinite. From 0 up in positive numbers. Also infinite. Combine them. Still infinite but bigger than either on their own. A professor in university told me that and it blew my mind. There are infinite numbers from 0 to 1. 6 quadrillion. 520 trillion. Earth volumes make up the same volume as the largest known star. Uy-Scuti. That's 6. 520. 000. 000. 000. 000x Earth. Gary Newman is older than Gary Oldman by a little under 2 weeks. You can place all the planets of our solar system between Earth and Moon and even have a bit of spare space after. 10 out of 10 scientists all agree that this is a bad idea and should not be attempted. When humans started farming, blue eyes in humans hadn't evolved yet. Evolved. Mutated. Yeah, beautiful freaks. We are arguably in the middle of the 6th mass extinction event on Earth. The last ending the dinosaurs. Current estimates run that 50% of species on Earth will be extinct by 2050. Sorry for the downer. But it does threaten life on Earth as we understand it. Let that sink in. According to quantum physics, positrons are technically electrons going backwards in time. There's a hypothesis that every single electron and positron in our universe is really just one single electron-positron going backwards and forwards in time. I became a dad yesterday. Still working on letting that sink in. America has been at war 93% of the time since the Declaration of Independence, or 224 out of 241 years, or since 1776. I'm a little late, but this always blows my mind. How many days do you think are in 1 million seconds? 11.5 days. Spoiler. That's cool. But with that information, how long do you think 1 billion seconds is? Almost 32 years. Spoiler. Which makes 1 trillion seconds. Almost 32,000 years. Spoiler. Sorry for the capitals, I just get excited by numbers. Edit. Said hours instead of days. Adwaita, the longest living animal ever, was a giant tortoise given to Clive of India. He was born around 1750 and died in 2006. He existed longer than the United States has. E. G. equals example given. I. E. equals in essence. If that helps you understand the two better. Today, driving a manual transmission car is a better anti-theft than most anti-theft systems. Probably more applicable for the US. Mammoth roamed the earth when the pyramids were built. There are more pot dispensaries in Colorado than McDonald's. counting Native American. There are more different languages spoken in Oklahoma than in Europe. 1 in 8 Americans live in California. Cops can legally lie to you. On its own that doesn't seem wrong. But consider this. When you're being interrogated, they are allowed to lie to you about evidence. They can tell you that they have a video of you doing the crime, even when that is a complete fabrication. But, of course, you would know if you did a crime or not. Right? As it turns out, not so much. Gaslighting, which is the process of repeating a lie until the victim of that lie believes it to be true, is what happens here. People will often confess to crimes they didn't or even couldn't possibly have committed because the police repeated a lie about evidence. If you'd like to see the victims of such tactics, the confession tapes, which I found on Netflix, highlight several cases where this tactic has been employed. A word of warning. It is very disturbing and upsetting material. So choose your viewing time wisely. Edit. Not such a fun fact after all. About 1 million people die every year from mosquito bites. That's 700 per day. Or 100 every hour. Think about how many must have died since you started reading this prompt. Most of the fossil fuel we see today was formed before fungus and bacteria developed that could digest lignin. About 300 Maya. That's why since then, including today, coal formation is so slow. Mushrooms are eating all the rotting stuff before fossil fuels can form. A pistol shrimp can create a moss bubble bullet by snapping its claws that travels faster than any car. Upon its creation, the OS bullet reaches a temperature that equals the temperature on the surface of the sun. The Great Pyramid was built before the last woolly mammoth died. The largest star ever discovered, VY Canis Majoris, is so large that if it were placed where the sun is now, its surface would extend to beyond Jupiter. That means that us humans on Earth would be only 1/8 of the distance to the surface. Evolution do not work as many say towards a goal. It's completely random and only works due to the fact that less adjusted weaker animals has a higher chance to die. Then think about the fact that first life must happen a single cell organism who then needs to become multicellular, begin to reproduce sexually, gene splitting sharing, grow more advanced and leave the shallows to walk on Earth and so on in an amazing and completely random progress towards higher complexity or to be more adapted. Also reindeer's hoof snaps while they walk due to a tendon in their feet. Evolution isn't a grand ascent toward perfection. It's a constant drunken stumble toward a good enough. We, as a species, do not know exactly how old Mariah Carey is. If you choose not to have children, you are the first person in your direct ancestry all the way back to the first humans related to you to not have children. Edit. Changed bloodline to direct ancestry. Edit 2. Others have informed me that it goes as far back as all organisms since life evolved on Earth. I hadn't thought of that. Cyprus is the only country that celebrates the Independence Day of a different country. Snipers are supposed to camp. Edit. So far 1,000 people agree with me. Edit. Make that 4,000. Holy crap. At one point in your life you were the youngest person on the planet. Congratulations. More Americans die from firearms every year in the USA than have died in Iraq and Afghanistan combined since 2001. Okay. That one was not so much fun. A pretty big portion of that is suicides, which makes it more tragic to me. The brain named itself? The universe is so empty that if we took 3 grains of sand and placed them inside a vast cathedral, that cathedral will be more filled with sand than the universe is with stars. 2/3 of carbon and other greenhouse gases are created in the atmosphere by IT companies. That's why it won't change. It's 2017. And we still don't have the hoverboard we were promised. Mississippi didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until 2013. You can put almost anything in a container and ship it almost anywhere. The whole world uses the same container standard. Gwen Stefani is older than Ted Cruz. Afghanistan produces 90% of the world's opium. Since the U.S. invasion of Afghanistan, opium production and distribution around the world has skyrocketed. All of the opiates that Americans are using in epidemic numbers? Guess where it's coming from? Fun fact. If we held a minute of silence for every person that died in the Holocaust. Stevie Wonder couldn't read music. Most biblical scholars assert that the Synoptic, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and the Gospel of John were written between 60 and 100 years after Jesus' death, not by eyewitnesses, and in Greek. Jesus spoke Aramaic. Edit. Assume that the synoptic stories in the Gospel of John are the same when they are not. I'm not sure how many of you will see this, but we spent way too much time doing this math this weekend to not share. In The Empire Strikes Back, we see these same turbolasers destroying asteroids in one blast. I found somewhere that the energy required to do this is around 450 terajoules of energy. The total yield of a megaton of TNT is 4,200 terajoules. In less than 10 shots, a Star Destroyer will have output destructive energy on the same scale as the most powerful weapons we have ever created. Did the Empire really even need a Death Star? Sinks can't open doors. Let that sink in. We put a man on the moon, 1969, before we put wheels on our luggage, 1970. Ajit Pai is a F King CNT. In a few days the contents on this thread will be reposted on BuzzFeed and YouTube as top 10 facts you didn't know. The sky is below you. Not me. I'm not Australian. There have been 9,5,000 yard seasons for a QB. Dan Marino has one. Matthew Stanford has one. Tom Brady has one. Peyton Manning has one. Scientists haven't found out a particular brain component responsible for consciousness. There is no physical proof of consciousness. It just is. One day your parents put you down and never picked you up again. Every time you shuffle a deck of cards. Especially if you're shuffling Yu-Gi-Oh cards. The longest surviving Civil War veteran lived to see nuclear combat and supersonic flight. Pineapples take 2 years to grow. Edit. Whoa. Thanks for all the upvotes. Your penis is actually about 2 inches longer than it appears. Since the groin area is fairly flabby even in fit men, it hides the extra length. President William Harrison was president for 32 days. He died of pneumonia because he gave his inaugural speech in the cold-ass weather without a jacket. 700 million people, about 10% of the world's population, live on less than what $2 a day would buy you in the United States. If you earn more than $32,400 a year, you are in the top 1% of the world's income. That's after adjusting for local prices. A donation to the most effective charity on GiveWell means you will save one life for every $500 donated. Thanks to the 21st Amendment, you literally have a constitutional right to drink alcohol. 1 in 5 pregnancies results in a child that lives past the age of 2. An old Hindu text predicted the birth of a polarizing figure to be born in a barn near Jerusalem off a virgin birth, and that it would have repercussions that would last millennia.